Hi everybody, I just wanted to touch base about the state of the field exercise that you completed for this week. If you haven't already checked, I have graded and given you feedback on each of the presentations. You can find that feedback probably in the Dropbox, or I know for sure in the Reports tab or in the gradebook. Overall, I think you as a class did a great job. The presentations were professional and clean. A lot of you offered really good insights. Almost all of you managed to work the narration in, which I think really enhanced the experience. So I've taken three that I thought really stood out and posted them in a folder under the Lessons tab. It's a standalone folder, and it just says State of the Field Presentations and Feedback. So I'm going to post this video in there as well. I encourage you to click through the presentations that I've posted in there, not only because I felt like some of the firms that those people analyzed and then what they put in the slides really spoke to the heart of what the assignment was about, but also because in terms of as you create PowerPoints in the future, I think that they did a good job of balancing, say, graphics and words on slides, as well as giving an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, which is always good and important when you're doing presentations. So these were some examples I thought of people who did a really good job at capturing the assignment. So I encourage you to click through those just to see what they were all about. So usually when I teach this face-to-face, we take one class session to do the research and then use the next class session, or at least part of it, to share the presentations. So what I'm going to do now, and then after everybody shares their presentations, I kind of, not summarize, but maybe synthesize what everybody said and pull out some interesting or unique keywords that I feel really characterize the field. So I'm going to do that now. I went through all of the presentations. I'm going to pull out some of the keywords, or I pulled out keywords, and I'm going to give some of them to you and just kind of get that discussion started in your own mind. So even if we're not doing it formally in a discussion forum, and certainly we're not face-to-face, I can still put some stuff out there for you to think about based on the work that you did. So that way your voice is coming through in this part of the lesson as well. So I hope you find it useful. So in terms of keywords for the scope of the field, or what public relations is all about right now, here are some really interesting keywords that I picked up on, sometimes in more than one presentation, that I thought really spoke well to the lesson as well. So one of the PR firms said that they do guiding. Others mentioned research, brand expression. So it's no longer branding anymore. In keeping with the idea of like a conversation among an organization and its constituents, they talked about brand expression. Edelman, who quite a few of you covered, they must somewhere on their website say PR is not enough. Now they're about public engagement, and that's a third way to communicate. So I thought that was really telling and really in sync with what we've been learning about, just in terms of, again, we're not just telling people, we're not just talking at people, we're engaging in two-way communication, we're engaging. And basically they propose it as a third way to communicate. I thought that was really clever. Apparently they're doing their job well. Caught my attention. Media relations in a traditional sense, and then another PR firm mentioned blogger relations. So just as we go through this semester, we'll touch on three different types of media, and I categorize them as controlled, uncontrolled, and do-it-yourself. And so uncontrolled media, when we get to that lesson, I think it's in week 7, we really talk about media relations and how public relations professionals liaison with the media to get third-party ink, which Scott talked about. So in your discussion this week, a lot of you kind of felt that the old PR was characterized by having that third-party gatekeeper, but we still use it. We still use media relations and public relations. But now, in addition to that, there's this notion of blogger relations. So the fact that there are professional bloggers out there in any given field that really have just as much of an impact as traditional media. So now we see PR firms specializing in blogger relations. And I do this exercise every semester for 401. I didn't teach 401 in the fall because I was out on maternity leave. So the last time I taught it was in the spring, and blogger relations was not even a phrase that had ever come up. So that's really kind of shows how the field is evolving. It's something that's probably just come up as a specialty in the last year or so. So I think that's really interesting. Social media, of course, came up quite a bit. Integrated services. So the firm wasn't really specific about what that means, but I like the idea of integration. So integration is huge because nothing stands alone anymore, and everything kind of melds together. Narrative development, I thought that was really interesting. In a couple weeks, when I take you through controlled media, we talk about, or I'll talk about, a website as being a vehicle that should really tell the story of the organization. So although it may seem weird, narrative development and narrative expression is something that is really important in corporate communication or public relations. Another firm mentioned an authentic brand voice and word of mouth. So I thought that was really interesting as well. And then crisis management, more of a traditional area, lifestyle management, and employee communication. These are all different keywords that really stood out in terms of what public relations firms see themselves as doing. In terms of what the PR landscape is kind of right now, some of the firms mentioned complexity, so it is a very complex landscape, complex communication landscape. They talked about the media landscape in flux, and I think that's very true. The media landscape, as many of you pointed out in this week's discussion, or I guess last week's discussion, is always changing. It's global, certainly. Public relations is on a global stage, and also integrated. So again, everything, the idea of everything going together. You did find that they vary in size and scope, but a lot of you pointed out that they overlap, and at least one of the groups said that public relations firms aren't unique. It's not about finding which one can perform the service that you want, but it's about finding the one that can do it the best for you. So kind of saying like a lot of the firms are kind of the same, but they vary in terms of skill. Some of you mentioned that they all claim to be creative or the most effective. So while there is some variation in the scope, a lot of them are not kind of boutique PR firms, but deal on a quite large scale with a lot of different specialties. In terms of clients, a lot of them mentioned large multinational corporations, some mentioned non-government organizations or NGOs, some mentioned nonprofits as well. Others were less specific about who their clients were. And then in terms of industries, I saw they mentioned health, financial, education, and of course there's always corporate PR as well. Overall, you guys focused in your analysis on the fact that the field is changing. I think you're absolutely correct in that social media seems to be at the forefront of it. Also, the role of PR as management instead of PR as mouthpiece. And then finally, expression. So again, the idea of creativity and expression being very important, as well as two-way communication. So I hope kind of preparing the presentations, then viewing the few that I've put up, as well as the synthesis, as well as the lesson from last week, gives you a really good feel for what the PR field is like, and especially with you graduating in the next year or so, will get you thinking about how, if public relations or even on a larger scale corporate communication is something that you want to go in, or if this more traditional area of corporate communication is something that you want to go into, you see that there's a wide variety of specialties. And even though it didn't make the presentation, there's sports management, celebrities, event planning. There is so much more. So hopefully this will get you thinking about the direction that you want to go in professionally as you work towards getting your degree. In terms of presentations, because we do have a couple more exercises like this where you hand in presentations, again, most of them are really good, clean, professional. A couple things I want to mention, and these are just general tips for presenting. Never read word for word from your slide. So we've all sat through presentations where people do it, and it's just you can read it as people hear it, so it's better to use keywords on the slide and have a good balance of keywords or phrases, as well as graphics to kind of liven up the slides. And then your narration should enhance the keywords that are on the slides. So that's how I'd like you to treat it. And not too text heavy. So some of my slides I know in my lessons are text heavy, and I try to do that because I know you'll be taking notes on them, but especially face to face, it's always great to have something that's not too text heavy, and again with a nice combination of graphics and keywords and phrases. And then finally, what I wanted to say is one student had the great idea to put his presentation on Google Docs and then provide a link. Although I'm not sure if Google Docs is always available anymore. I think Google has something called Google Drive now. There's also something called Dropbox. These are all services that kind of let you upload your presentation or create your presentation in that space, and then just if it's a large file size, share it through a link. So that way, I know one or two people had trouble uploading their file to Angel. This would kind of save you from that trouble. You could just send me the link via Google Docs, Google Drive, or Dropbox. Dropbox unrelated to Angel, by the way. Dropbox, its own service. If you Google it, it'll come up. It's a free account to create for any of them, and then again, you could share documents publicly without having to actually email the physical document. So if you do have trouble with audio in the future, that would be a great way to take care of it. So if anyone has any questions about the feedback, feel free to reach out to me. And I hope that you all found this to be a good and entertaining and educational lesson and activity. Have a great week.